this video we'll cover two subjects, technical names and intervals. So technical names and intervals are somewhat related, and the relationship has to do with some of the physical properties of sound, specifically going through the harmonic series. Now, getting into the physics of this is a little bit beyond what we really want to get into. But just to give a rough overview, if you have a string, and this can be like a violin string or a guitar string, and you pluck that string, it will vibrate at a certain frequency, which is determined by its length, and that will give you a certain note. Now, say for example, this note is a C over there. So that is one whole length of the string vibrating. Now, if we cut this string in half, so we have 1/2, you will get the frequency of that half a string will be the note C again, but exactly 1 octave higher. And then if you split the string into 3, so if you split it into thirds like over there, you will get like that vibration. So 1/3, and now this note will be the G. And so if you had a string which was, if we started out at F, if our starting note was F, the first, splitting it into a half will give you another F, and then splitting it into thirds will give you the C. So one can see that the C is related to G as F is related to C. So that's why these notes kind of stick out and kind of have an important place in music theory. Now, of course, it gets a little bit more complicated than that when you really get into the details of it. But that's all that one really needs to know for this section. So we have the special name for the starting note, which is the tonic. And then for the note that's a fifth above, is called the dominant. And for the fifth below, we have the subdominant. So you have that symmetry between the notes there. Now, keeping in line with that symmetry, we have these notes over here, the E and the A. Because between the tonic and the dominant, we have the note in between there, which is the mediant. So mediant meaning the note in the middle. And in between the F and the C, we have the submediant. And then the other two notes, which we haven't done yet, are the supertonic, and finally we have the leading note over here. Now, the leading note has a different name because it is a really important note in the way that keys are put together. Usually you can tell what the key is just by seeing what the leading note is. So for example, if you go from C major to G major in a piece of music, you would have an F sharp somewhere, and that F sharp would be the leading note of your new key. And generally, when you have those raised notes, that will always kind of indicate the leading note. So if you're playing along merrily and you suddenly find a D sharp, sometimes music will just, for a short period, will just modulate and go into E major or E minor, or whatever the case may be. And so the leading note kind of leads on to the tonic. And that's basically, it's da 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 da, da 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 da, bum. It leads you onto the tonic. So that's the basic idea. But the important thing to notice here is just the importance of the dominant and the subdominant. Because this will now play into our next little section, which is intervals, where the tonic, the subdominant, and the dominant have a slightly special way of being named when we do intervals. So the system for naming intervals is a little bit confusing, at least at first. So it's best to kind of approach it almost as an algorithm. Once you know how to do this, it's the simplest thing in the world. But getting your head around precisely how it works does take a little bit of practice, a little bit of thinking. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to lay out the algorithm here. And what we have is for the tonic, let's get a better pen. For the tonic, the subdominant, the dominant, and the tonic again. So I should actually, sorry, let me write this properly. For 1, 4, 5, and 8, we are going to use perfect, augmented, diminished. And for, don't worry about what these numbers mean quite yet. It'll all become clear in a second. For 2, 3, 6, and 7, we are going to be using augmented, major, minor, diminished. So you can see it's the same. It's just that here you have augmented, perfect, diminished, and here that perfect splits into 2. Okay, so now I'm kind of using terminology back to front. But if we had tonic, supertonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, submediant, leading note, and tonic again. So there's 2 ways that we can do intervals. We can either do intervals like this, where you have it melodically running along there, or you can do it, you can stack it on top of each other. Now, I'm not going to do that now, but you can stack them right on top of each other, in which case it's harmonic. So get this pen over here. Harmonic is like that, and melodic is like that. Now, whichever way you do it, you'll always start from the bottom note. So, and whichever the bottom note is. So it doesn't matter which key you're in. And this is where it gets slightly confusing with the major and minor being here, because it kind of suggests that it has to do with the key that you're in, but it doesn't really. Let me explain. So the way that you're going to count it, let's say we start from C over here. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to write the C as a harmonic interval each time. So C to D is a second, C to E is a third, C to F is a fourth, C to G is a fifth, C to A is a sixth, C to B is a seventh, and C to C is an octave. So unison, in fact, we just draw it as a unison there. Unison, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, octave. Okay, so that's the starting point. And so now what we're going to do is we're just going to use our key here. So this is a perfect unison because in C major you have a C. And then you have, in C major you have a D. So it's a major second. In C major you have an E. So it's a major third. In C major you have an F. So it's a perfect fourth. In C major you have a G. So it's a perfect fifth. And in C major you have an A, so it's a major sixth, major seventh, and perfect octave. So that's the basic scheme. And it wouldn't matter if we go from C to A or from C to A. It would work out the same. The thing though is that if you go from A to C, you still have a major sixth. It doesn't matter that the A is first. And you always work it from the bottom note, not from the first note. So that's just something to notice when you're doing melodic intervals. Okay, so now you can do this from anywhere. But let's say, let's work it like this. Let's say now instead of having it like this, what I'm going to do now is we start everything from this bottom note, from the D here. So from D to D, again, is a perfect unison. D to E is the second. And in D major, we have to ask ourselves, is there an E in D major? And the answer is yes, because D major has an E natural. So that is a major second. In D major, though, is there an F natural? And the answer is no. There's an F sharp in D major. So to get from D to F natural from F sharp, what we needed to do is we needed to lower this note. We need to take that sharp away. So if we just do it like this over here, so we had to go lower to the natural. And so one step smaller here gets us to the minor. So from D to F is a minor third. Then again, from D to G will be a perfect fourth, D to A a perfect fifth, D to B natural will again be a major sixth, and D to C, again, in D major, you would have a C sharp, so you needed to lower that note to get to D. And so it's smaller, so we have a we have a minor sixth going from D to C. So that's the basic structure of it. Let's just do a couple of practice ones just to show how this works in context. Because as I say, it's something that when you just look at it theoretically, it does take a little bit of getting your head around it. But once you have the hang of it, it's actually terribly straightforward. So we can pick a random note, let's say F sharp over there, and pick another random note. We go D flat over here. Okay, now I've made life quite difficult for us. I'm not even sure if this will actually work out. But in F sharp major, we would have, this is, first let's work out what the size is. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have a sixth. And now we want to know, in F sharp major, this would have been a D sharp. So we'll need to lower it once to get to D natural. So from F sharp to D natural would have been a minor sixth, but it's not, it's actually a D flat. So we have to go another semitone down. So in other words, this is a diminished, to really write that with a small letter, diminished sixth. So that just gives the way to do this. Let's try another one. Let's say we go G to F. So if we work that out, that'll be a seventh. And in G major, there would have been an F sharp. So we have one step smaller. So this will be a minor seventh. But what's important to notice is we don't ask in G minor, is there an F natural? It doesn't work that way. We always look at the bottom note and we say in G major, what would that top note have been? So for example, if we did, let's say C sharp and let's do something augmented. Let's do F natural over there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say F natural in F major, what would we have had? We would have had a C natural. So from F to C would have been a perfect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a perfect fifth. And so in order to get from C to C sharp, we had to make this interval bigger. We had to move the C further away from the F. And so now F to C sharp there is an augmented fifth. So that's those two connected there. So the important point here is just to notice we don't look at the C sharp, we look at the bottom one always. F to C sharp, not C sharp to F. Because if we look C sharp to F, then well it wouldn't quite work out. But yeah, because you would, yeah, it wouldn't work out. So you always have to start at the bottom one and go to the top one. Okay, there's just one other thing, is compound intervals. When we have intervals that are bigger than an octave, we have to, there's two ways that we can approach it. So let's just go here, let's say D to D. So that's an octave. Now if we go one step bigger, that'll be a ninth. Now we can also call that a compound second. So compound and we would treat it exactly the same way we would treat a normal second. So in D major, we would have an E natural. So in other words, this is a major compound second or a major ninth. And the quick way of doing it is you can always just add 7 to whatever it is. So let's say you have E and G, for example. So now what you can do is you can just work out, so there's your G there, so that's a third. Just erase that. So it's a compound third. Now, it's a compound third plus 1 octave. So what you're going to do is you're going to add 7. Now, I know an octave is 8, but you always add 7 because you have 1 plus 7 gives you the 8. So 3 plus 7 gives you the 10th. And in E major, you would have had a G sharp, but instead we have a G natural. So this is one step smaller than it would have been in E major. So this is a minor 10th. So that's the thing. So basically just practicing this, when you get the hang of it, it really is terribly simple, but to get the hang of it can be a little bit mind-bending. So that's basically all you need to know about intervals and technical maps.